Sup, ladies and gentlemen, this is Vocab Malone. Welcome to Street Apologist Live. We are going to be starting here today talking about how to use questions in evangelism as you are witnessing. And I'm very glad to be with you today, Wednesday, October 2nd. I am your host, Vocab Malone, and you are now rocking with Street Apologist Live. Doing something I've never done before, although to you can't really tell. And what it is I've got a second monitor up. I've never done this before. I have needed this for the longest time. And I didn't get anything new. I actually got a super old monitor. It's so old it doesn't even have HDMI. It's only got VGA. But the thing is I didn't have any VGA cords. And then when I was rearranging, I found an old VGA cord because I didn't really want to buy one. And so now I didn't have to, because now I can plug it into this old one. And it's dope because now I actually have the show on its own dedicated monitor. So I'm not even looking at my laptop. I'm just looking at the screen and I can just see it, and it's perfect and it's pure. And then on my laptop, I've got all my controls. So I'm excited about this. We'll see how this goes. Always trying to improve, if you notice, always new things in the background, rearranging things, trying to kind of get it in order, make things better, whatever. Anyways, please go ahead and hit the like button and grab this link and share it. And listen, if you check out these programs, why not subscribe? Subscribing doesn't cost you anything. Even if you're a hater and you don't feel what I do or whatever, if you still want to check it out, just subscribe, please. I usually don't remember to say all that stuff, to subscribe, for example. But hey, why not subscribe? And also, on that note, if you want to become a supporter, there's a couple ways. PayPal, it's on the screen, vocabmalone@gmail. And then also we got, Cash App, and that's through Street Apologist. And then, of course, there's Patreon. And once we get the next amount, I forget what it is off the top of my head, I'm gonna start blogging once a month. On a regular basis. I may even make it once a week. I forget what the level says, but that's kind of the next level. Let me bring the screen down just a tad, see how we look. Whoa, looks like my man Tony Tabano all the way out in Providence, Rhode Island is starting things off strong. My man, thank you very much, brother. You killed it, starting off already with the super chat. And so that means I owe a freestyle. So while we're getting ready to do this show, I think I'm just going to knock this freestyle out right now because we've already got it. So, it's been a while, Tony. It's good to see you. You know who called me right before we started was actually LaRon. And so, it's cool to see you guys. It's good to see Carm in the chat. We got Liza, Gerard. Hey, I see your comment, Mr. Phil Fox. How you doing? We got Brother Nate. We got Brian, Love and Light. Hey. Fernando, how you doing? We got Miss Titus 2. Hey. We got Jeffrey Dahmer. And we got some other people. I'm not going to mention everybody in the world right now. Blueberry, what's up with you? Cornish Chandler, what's up with you? D New, hey, I didn't know you was here, but I see you are. Zareta Ortiz, why don't you get a profile picture? It adds to the character and the flavor. All right, so let's start with this freestyle, and then we'll get right into the topic, all right? Because you guys already have made it happen. Yeah. Mic check. First, I gotta mic check it. Let me know about the mic. Check it. How's that level, y'all? How's the level? If I think everything's a little too loud. I think I need to adjust these levels. All right, turn down the rapping level. Turn on the beat a little bit. All right, what about if I rap right about here? How will it sound? All right, let's see. Right about there. All right, let's do it. Gonna kick off the show with freestyle, ladies and gentlemen. All right, here we go. Yeah. Beat by Jonathan Soko. That's right. All right. Yeah, all right. Let me adjust this. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, ha. 1, 2, 3, begin with the freestyle mode, unlock, yo, explode. 30 people in the spot, let's make it some more, like a la mode, with apple pie, coming hot out the oven. Grab the gospel, not even shoving but loving. Yes, I'm not part of a witch's coven. Ha ha, yes, cause there ain't no witch in here. Peep it out now, a switch disappear. No broom, I'm in the room. Hey yo, check it out, how is the volume? Let me know when I spit on the mic. After the show, I gotta eat some rice with some chicken. That's finger licking. I grab the beat like Lee, I'm kicking 30 people. What's up, y'all? On your lunch break, Wednesday stall, chilling in the bathroom stall while you watch this. Vocab alone on top of this, never monotonous, now spontaneous. Yes, indeed, we're extraneous, explaining this, but no man's explaining to the cats. Jamaican, Haitian, Caucasian, Asian, don't matter. Read the Bible, another chapter. See the verse, understand the data. After the show, I need lunch on a platter. Maybe some cheese, broccoli with rice. Hey yo, what's up? I don't hit the pipe, but I got the clip. So, this beat has so much soul. Blue lemonade, don't you know? Probably too much sugar, but it's good. Yo, a taste of the island while I'm freestyling. Hello, how you doing? Now I'm got my vitamin, niacin, riboflavin. That's the flavor. Now he's saving his people free from sin. Jesus the Christ get born again, like he told Nicodemus and them. Peep it out now, become a fisher of men. With the pole out on the lake, Jesus the Christ is like a shake and bake to the devil. Yo, that's real. Take it to another level. I feel, yes I will. Freestyle on a hill of Calvary. He's saving me. Rock the beat by so cold. Peep this out now. Got a choke cold on my sin and on my vice. I got a brand new black type of mic. Yes, ride it like a bike. So call it a twin, then begin again. Love and light. He's in the chat, my kin. Peep it out now, who's my friend? I got your back like a fin upon a dolphin or a shark. My name's John Mark, I spark the arc, call me Noah in the ark. Blow up the mic like Nate with a fart. That's the art, call it ART. Peep it out now, we have a party. John Markey will begin to spark the microphone, shine like Sparky. Sun Devil logo, maybe mascot. Peep it out now, I stay away from Scotch and Scottsdale. It's like, hey, peep it out now, the three nails. Reason I prevail when I speak of vowel. I'm not so wise, don't call me OL. Never win a Nobel Prize, that's no lie. J, now I display what you got to say. Chill with Dr. Dre. Hey yo, that's a lie. Chill with Brother J. It's a holiday, but y'all don't celebrate. Vocab alone, I'm gaining some weight. Cause why I ate the mac and cheese on my plate. Thank God I gotta eat some grapes. Smash it, turn it into wine. But now I come from the top of the mine. Peep this out now, line upon line. And precept, you know, mic check. Peep it now, I use the alphabet like 26 soldiers. Yes, I guess, like the genes. This is the end, and we on a we're gonna start, my friend. All right, so there's our first freestyle. Nate, will you let me know how many freestyles I owe everybody? And look, check it out, man. I know that some of you guys aren't feeling me doing this in the middle of the day, but here's what's up. I gotta do it when I can. It's not gonna happen if I don't. Life is so crazy busy. I mean, this article just dropped in the Christian Research Journal, exclusive online edition of the magazine, and now it is out. So it's not in the print edition, which is this, which I do suggest subscribing to, but it is now online, and you can get it where? Equip.org. Just type in vocab alone in the search bar at equip.org. Read the article. I've actually done a live stream on part of the article talking about why do Hebrew Israelites call Chinese Moabites. And I'm thinking of doing a live stream on the other part of the article, which is why do Hebrew Israelites call white people Edomites. So that's one thing that's going on. Plus, Postmodern Realities just dropped the interview that corresponds with it. You can find that as well. Look for Melanie Cogdill, Postmodern Realities, discussing the article in depth in an interview format, plus some really fun stuff at the end. She asked some personal Q&A. I think you want to hear that. Not only that, the third interview with Michael Heiser came out. And so all this stuff is happening Plus, this Saturday, we're jumping on a plane. Me, David Wood, Adam Coleman, and some other homies I can't name right now. Yo, we're going to Philly this weekend, real quick turnaround trip, to see this debate between Vince Bantu and Brother Jabari. Now, Vince Bantu is an amazing Christian apologist, a scholar of the first magnitude, highest order, and then he's going to be debating Brother Jabari, who's a Kemetic Egyptologist. He calls himself a high priest in this stuff. So they're debating, is Christianity the white man's religion? A very perennial topic when it comes to urban apologetics. All this is going on, and I'm trying to sneak in live broadcast as well, plus working on new videos with the homies Bri from the Shy and my man Conman Mike. So a lot is going on. It's crazy. So let me take a break now that I broke all that down. Plus, I missed the deadline for the book. The book's going to be delayed. I'm still praying that it'll be out by 2020. Plus, this show we did recently on food is just like making a lot of noise. So listen, I want to just recommend a couple resources before we get into our topic about that last live stream talking about did Jesus declare all foods clean? Here's one by Thomas Schreiner, 40 Questions About Christians and the Biblical Law. This is a great little book that discusses a lot of issues related to that. It's on Kriegel. And if you want to hear different viewpoints, I think this is another good one too, called 5 Views on Law and Gospel. It's edited by Gundry, and it's in the Zondervan Point Counterpoint series that they do. It's got Bonson, Kaiser, Moo, Strickland, Van Gemeren. Just good stuff. So that's what's up. And so now, let's all peace out, Liza. And I know Rox can't stay for the whole time either. Much love, though. I understand, everybody, but it's just good to see you. All right, so that's what's going on. So now, here's what we want to discuss. We want to discuss a return to something I've been dealing with lately, which is evangelism. And in these conversations, a lot of us don't know what to do. Hey, Love and Light, thank you for the super chat and all the hearts as well. A lot of times we don't know what to do. Nobody's really the expert. And, even if you've done it tons of times, sharing the gospel, you still get nervous. It's just a fact of it. It's how it goes. And so what I want to do is equip you guys with some stuff that some of you probably have heard before about what kind of questions to ask and how to ask them. Now, a lot of you are familiar with this book. I'm excited. The second edition, the 10-year anniversary, is coming out pretty soon. Tactics by Gregory Kokel. You can even listen to it on Audible. And I'm looking forward to the second edition in November. And he talks about having tactics. He describes it as a game plan for discussing your Christian convictions. And so I want to kind of talk about some of that now and just have an open conversation about some things. And again, a lot of this will be from here. And I just want to reiterate it, okay? And I just want to talk about that right now because I'm doing that with another group of people currently. And so what it is when I'm doing one thing, I got to do the other to try to be efficient as far as use of time. Okay, so here's what's up. A lot of you have been looking at apologetic content for a while, meaning you've been looking into reasons for why the Christian faith is true. Some of you, that's the case. You've been understanding and studying it, but one of the challenges you might have is how do you get what's in here out there? Do you ever have that problem? Some of you, I'm sure, can relate, where you feel like you've got this information, but translating it in a conversation is a difficult challenge. Now, others of you are like, well, yeah, I wish I had that problem. My problem is different. My problem is I just don't really have the information. I haven't been studying long enough. I haven't been looking into this long enough. I'm interested. I'm curious. If you're here listening to this, that's probably you. And you guys can hear Justice in the background. He's going after the mailman, I think. Hopefully the mailman survives. Justice, thank you. It's okay. Thank you. That way I don't show him I'm mad at him when he barks because I want him to be a good guard dog. You know what I'm saying? I just acknowledge his barking. That's what I'm doing there. It's like, I hear you, bro. Thank you for letting me know, man, but I can't deal with that right now. When he passes, I'm gonna get like 2 Dobermans or something like that. Anybody out into dog breeding? I know a lot of people breed pits, but he's a pit, and I'm looking at a different route. Anybody, let me know if you guys got any professional dog breeders out there. I want to talk to you. Hey, thank you, Roxby, for the super chat. Shout out to you. Someone, Roxby or Nate, can one of you guys let me know how many I owe, how many freestyles? All right, so a Chihuahua, Gerard Perry. Hey, man, brother, I don't want to disrespect you, but I ain't getting no pocket rat, man. I'm going to pass on the pocket rat. I have to be 95 years old before I ever even consider a dog like a Chihuahua. All right, so back to what I was saying, man, is so some of you are like, hey, I don't have the information, and so I'm really intimidated, but I do want to have some conversations with the Lord, or about the Lord with people, hopefully with the Lord as well, right? Oh, okay, Nate. All right, right on, bro. Hey, no sweat. Just let me know when you can, man. Nate, I see you, bro. It's all right, Gerard. I got love for you, man. Okay, so today hopefully can help both groups of people. If you feel like you're not ready to have a deep conversation and you feel intimidated and that's where you're at, come on, Black Panther chair, help me out here. Whatever. Come on, man. What are you doing? What's going on? It's not this. This isn't right. This isn't right. This isn't right. I'm gonna have to just take this thing off for now. Oh, that's not even a better look. Whatever. Okay. So to you guys, hopefully it can help both of you, no matter where you're at, because questions can help you learn how to guide a conversation, and they can help you either get your content across in hopefully a winsome way, or they can also help you learn as you go along, even if you don't know everything yet. You know what I'm saying? So that's what's up. So let's talk a little bit about that. I'm gonna crack open the book. I've been listening to his lectures almost all week, and he's got a lot of helpful stuff. And I want to actually start off with the way he starts off with the book, which a lot of you know this scripture. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to bring up Logos right now, although you can get a discount, as you can see on the screen, for Logos Bible software if you utilize that. I'm just going to go to Colossians 4 in the ESV, looking at verses 5 and 6, right? Here's what it says. Paul says, walk in wisdom toward outsiders. So walk, it means a continual habit, a way of life, and also implies a goal, I think, in something. So what are you walking in? Wisdom, skillful navigating, skillful living, applying God's truth to situations. Toward, so as you face who? Outsiders. What's an outsider? It's not someone in a different social class or different people group ethnically. Outsiders are those who are not in Christ. So you're in Christ as a believer. These are folks who are not in Christ, but you still want to walk in wisdom towards them. How? And what's that do for you? What's up with that? Walk in wisdom toward outsiders, making the best use of the time. So we're in a certain time, yes, but God is also giving you a certain amount of time. And here we are, and we're stewards of things, just like God, Christ spoke about a parable of talents, and people have certain things. We also have time to steward as well. And some of us have a lot, some of us have a little. And whatever amount of time God gives you to steward, he calls us into account for how we used it. And I know we could all sit around and feel guilty for how we don't use it, and that's true. But hopefully this broadcast is a good use of your time, because it equips you to have good conversations with people about Jesus. But also, hopefully, when you have those conversations, you make the best use of that time. You may be in an elevator. You may be on a plane flight. You may be out on a street corner. You may be online. You just don't know. There's different opportunities, and whatever that time is you're given, make the best use of it. Verse 6, let your speech, so this implies you speak. Some people have this idea of where you share the gospel almost, and where speaking it or the speech aspect is almost not mandatory, but man, it's a mandatory part of it. We got to speak. Let your speech always be gracious. And so people take that different ways, filled with the grace, the message of grace of Christ. I think that's true enough. But also as a practical application, your graciousness should show as a result. And so you're kind and courteous in the conversation. Seasoned with salt. And so what's that? Salt's a preserving agent, right? And also it brings a little bit of flavor. It's as if your conversation, I think really you could take this and apply it and say your conversation fits the mood and the mode, and it's interesting, and yet it's filled with the grace of Christ, so that you may know. So notice, this is something you really grow in wisdom. This is something you know. Hey, Nate, thanks for the super chat. Much love to you. And we'll see you again, Hayden. And everybody pray for Hayden if you see what he's saying there in the super chat. Much love to you, bro. Hayden, when you come back, get yourself a profile avatar, please. Makes things funner. IO48 freestyles. Oh, my goodness. We're going to have to talk about this, people. Wow. I'm glad I can trust you, Nate. So that you may know how you ought to answer. So ought implies an obligation. That's the kind of category it is. How you ought. So this is something you should do to answer each person. And just like Carm said earlier, I think Carm said each situation is different. And that's true. And that's why questions teach you how to navigate each different conversation so that you may know how you ought to answer each person. Let me stop here real quick. Bad Gator says, "Are you in your kid's room? All the Ninja Turtle stuff gave it away." Oh, Bad Gator. Apparently you just don't know who I am. And I've got to say, if you don't know me by now, you'll never, never know me. If you don't know me by now, you will never, never, never know me. Ooh. Bad Gator. This is the studio. This is the multi-purpose room. These were bought with a purpose, man. Those turtles back there are my doing. I picked those up at a Comic-Con, man, at Artist Alley. That Captain America poster comes from a comic book shop. This Transformers poster's over here come from a local toy store. This is all planned, bro. This ain't the kid's room. This is my room. Come on, man. All right, so that's important. So now when we look at that, we go over here and we say, okay, now how can we do that? How can we model that? How does that happen? Well, a key here is that questions can do the work. Questions change everything. Now, Coco calls this the Columbo tactic. So if you guys know Peter Falk or Falcon, whatever his name is, who I have a friend who's in Budapest, Hungary, and he told me they actually have a statue of Columbo there because apparently Peter Falk or Falcon, however you would say his name, apparently, I guess had part Hungarian ancestry. So there's a statue of Columbo there. Bizarre, right? So what we've got going on here is we got Columbo, this old detective, and I always thought he was portrayed as an Italian guy, but he'd be like, it's still something that bothers me about this whole thing. It's something that bothers me if I could just ask a quick question, whatever, something like that, right? He kind of looks like R.C. Sproul, just more disheveled if you compare them when they're around that similar age, right? So we look, and the thing is that he knew how to ask the right question in the right way. And if you're more interested in this, I've done a whole show with Greg Kokel on this. And so I encourage you, go through the YouTube channel, type in Greg Kokel, and you'll find a whole broadcast on this where we specifically talk about the book. Oh, shoot. Thank you, Roxby. Now you just brought it up to 2 more freestyles. We owe 50. 50 now. Much love and respect to you. May God continue to bless you. Oh, my goodness, Roxby. Thank you, Roxby, is all I can say, but I got a drink to that. Hey, X-Trap, what's up to you from India, too? GMOs never tasted so good. Someone's going to say this is alcoholic or something, I bet you. Oh, it's not great. It's a Greg Koukl. Koukl. But seriously, thank you, Roxby. Okay, so continuing on. You guys, I'm just chilling today, and you guys are just killing it. So what is the Columbo tactic? What is that? That's that idea that you're asking questions to get where you need to go. And so I like what he does here. He says, here's what questions do. Okay, I'm going to read here from page 45. I want you to notice several things about these questions. First, about these responses. He gave us some examples there. First, each is a question. My initial response in a situation like this is not to preach about my view or even disagree with theirs. Rather, I want to draw them out, to invite them to talk more about what they think. This takes a lot of pressure off me because when I ask a question, the ball is back in their court. It also protects me from jumping to conclusions and unwittingly distorting their meaning. Second, each of these questions is an invitation to thoughtful dialogue. Each is an encouragement to participate in conversation in a reflective way. Though my tone is relaxed and cordial, my questions are pointed enough to challenge the person to give some thought to what he's just said. Third, these are not idle queries. I have a particular purpose for each question. With some, I'm simply gathering information. Do you vote? Others, you might have noticed, are subtly leading. That is, the questions themselves suggest a problem with the other person's thinking. Example, wouldn't that essentially be forcing your views on others? Each of these questions I have suggested above occur to me because I have a plan. I know that getting into conversations about spiritual matters is not easy, especially if someone's guard is up. It's not unusual to get tongue-tied, not knowing what to say. This is complicated by the fear of getting in over your head, or worse, of offending someone. We need some help. Our first tactic is a handy solution to that problem. That's why I use it more than any other. It makes it easy for even the most timid to engage others in a meaningful way because it provides a step-by-step guide, a virtual game plan to help ease into a conversation. It might be called the queen mother of all tactics because it's so flexible and adaptable. It's easily combined with other moves you will learn later. It's the simplest tactic imaginable to stop a challenger in her tracks, turn the tables, and get her thinking. A virtually effortlessly way of putting you in the driver's seat of the conversation. It's simply called Columbo. Okay, so let's talk about that. Hey, Nate, much love to you, for real. Check this out. A question allows you time to stop talking. It gives a chance for the person you're speaking to talk, and allows you to learn more before you just start responding. A question takes the pressure off you having to explain everything. Do you guys understand how epic it is to ask questions? Because our initial response is hardly ever to ask a question. We got to take the emotion out of witnessing and evangelism. We've got to take our knee-jerk responses. We've got to walk in wisdom towards outsiders. So let's look at a couple. Let me explain to you what I mean. It was up after the flood. He says, all praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Shout out to you. So let's say somebody says a very common thing to you. Let's say you mention, I was just at church the other day. Now, if you're wise, you're trying to mention you're at church because you want to talk about Christ, right? And you say, I was just at church the other day. And the person says, oh, you go to church? Well, that's cool. Me personally, I'm spiritual but not religious. Don't you guys hear that a lot? I mean, can you count the amount of times you've heard that in some place in the world, whether it's a person you spoke to or someone on TV, spiritual but not religious. Now, what oh my goodness. You guys are funny. Somebody asked Carm if she still beats her husband. She said only when he acts up. I gotta say, Carm, that is the most Puerto Rican woman response I've ever seen in my life. I'm going to get in trouble for that one. You know I got love for you guys. I'm just messing. Come on. All right, so check this out. If they say that, right, instead of going off, and I think someone actually said it good. Somebody says, what does that mean? Dominus tecum. That's actually what you should ask. So here's the way it would go. Right? Somebody says, oh, well, I'm spiritual, I'm not religious. Instead of like this whole thing about why you need to go to church or why Christianity is true, just say, that's interesting, you know? I mean, there's 1,000 ways to say it. I'm just going to give you one example. I've heard that before, and whenever someone says that, I always wonder what they mean by that. Because I've noticed people mean different things by that. What do you mean when you say you're spiritual but not religious? Because you actually don't know what they really mean. You really have no clue. You're going to assume, because they just said one little phrase. And even if they say it and then they say more about it, because sometimes people don't just say, I'm spiritual but not religious. They might say, I'm spiritual but not religious. And they may go on and on. They may say, I'm in tune with the universe, whatever they say. You say something key in there. You ask them, what do they mean by that? What you're asking them to do is to explain it further. So I'll give you another example. What do you mean by spiritual? Or you said religious, not something you don't want to be. So how would you define religious? It doesn't have to be like, how do you define religious? It doesn't have to be like, all aggressive. The point is not to be aggressive. You actually should want to know the answer. Built for Speed says, vocab, I like to ask this question from time to time concerning heretical teachings. Who told you those things? That actually is similar to a question we are going to get to later on. So keep that in mind. That's good. That is relevant. Okay, so the big first one is information gathering by some variation of what do you mean by that? So somebody says, I'm not really with your kind of Christianity. It's too political. Now, before you go on and say, well, we're not all Republicans and, everything's political, whatever your response is going to be, just say, that's interesting. What do you mean it's too political? Or what do you mean my kind of Christianity? See, just ask these questions before you go. Just ask questions. It could be any place, anytime. Ask the questions, right? Ask the questions, guys. Ask the questions. And here's what's up. Even if you've got all the information in the world, you still want to ask the questions. And to the newbies in the audience, you guys definitely want to ask the questions. This is a way for you to learn. You have a friend who says, I saw someone earlier ask about Buddhism. I have a friend who says, I've really been studying Buddhism lately. And I've been getting into the wisdom of the Buddha, and I've been looking at even some Taoist teachings, and they just really resonate with me. I think I'm going to call myself a Buddhist. Now, I mentioned several different strands of things, but I've heard people say stuff like this. So I would say, what would it mean to you to call yourself a Buddhist? So instead, before you say, well, Buddha, they make statues of him, and, we're not even really sure about when he lived, and there's multiple Buddhas, and all these different things you could say. Like, just say, what does it mean to you to call yourself a Buddhist? Just, do you see what I'm saying? Or some variation of that. Go there. Guys, ask the questions. So let's say you're dealing with, let's say you're dealing with a Nation of Islam guy, and you quote from a book, and they say, "Oh, I don't trust that book. It's written by a white devil." You could go all kinds of routes. You know what the smartest thing to do would be? Would be say, "What do you mean by white devil?" Actually ask them what do they mean by that, because they're saying it as this phrase. Say, "What do you mean by white devil?" The first time you meet a Hebrew Israelite, and they say, hey, white people were Edomites, you know what you could say? You could say, what is an Edomite to you? You see what I'm saying? We could go on and on and on. These information gathering questions. And it's not just one. You could ask these the whole time. We don't know how much time we're going to get with everybody. We don't, do we? We don't know how long we have. But we do know that we all play different roles in God's great plan. And what I want to do is I want to show you something here. Where'd it go? Okay, yeah. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 5. Okay, listen to 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 5, everybody. The apostle says this, and this is going to relate to what we're talking about. What then is Apollos? What is Paul? Servants through whom you believed, as the Lord assigned to each. So put your name in there. What then is whoever you are? And guess what? The answer is a servant. That God can use you for others will believe as the Lord assigns to each. So God has it cut out who and how he's going to use you. Just be faithful in that. Now listen to verse 6. I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the growth. Notice that each one plays a different stage here. Do you see this? They play different stages in the growth and development of believers who are new in the faith. One plants, another waters. And really, I think you could, if you're going to go with this, God is the one who gives the growth, but what that means is there's someone who's going to see the harvest. Now, I think in this situation, Paul's using it a little bit different, but let me switch it a little bit. Like, remember at the end of John chapter 4, I think it's the end of the chapter, at the end of the discussion Jesus had with the woman at the well, the Samaritan, right? And all these people are coming as a result of her ministry, right? What happens? What happens is, he says, "Yo, the harvest is plenty, but the laborers are few." So some laborers are going to see the harvest. Others aren't going to see it. Some people may plant, or they may drop a seed in, we'll put it that way. They drop the seed, but they never see the growth. They never see that aspect, right? They never see that part. Think about it. Have you ever been part of seeing someone come to the Lord? Maybe you were there praying at the altar. I know different things happen in different contexts. Maybe it was someone you were talking on the phone with. Maybe it was someone you actually handed a tract to. Have you ever seen in some way someone coming to the Lord and you were part of this process and you realize like, hey, they are a believer now. Maybe they said it or you realize it, whatever it is, right? That happens. But if you talk to them, a lot of times there was something before that God used, and you don't always know what it is. Now, have you ever been on the other side, meaning you've had conversations with people and you thought you were going to see them again, but you never saw them again? You tried to call them and their phone numbers changed and they moved and you never know where they went, and that you thought you were getting, it's like your neighbor, someone from school, and all of a sudden they're gone out of your life. But you know that you were faithfully trying to be a farmer, so to speak, with them spiritually. But you don't know the end result. None of us do. I hope you guys see what I'm saying. My point is, not everyone sees the harvest, but some of us will. And the only way is to be in the game, is to be doing it, to be part of this project of the Great Commission. Some of us are just on this other side. And so I just want to encourage you guys, if you have a conversation with someone about the gospel and you ask questions like I'm encouraging you to do in a wise way, I hope you also understand the pressure's not on me to immediately see this person converted right now. Now, we pray for those kind of powerful immediate conversions, but we also know that's not really always the norm, is it? I don't think that's always the norm. So we don't know what's going to happen. We just know our job is to be faithful. And so what I want to do is constantly encourage people who are involved in apologetics and people who are involved with online communities to find healthy ways to also be involved with gospel evangelism in some way. And part of what I'm doing here is to tell you guys a key thing, whether you know a lot or a little, for you to do as you go out and about, is to ask questions. Ask questions. All right. Yes, Old Hickory, you are correct. I put your comment on the screen. You're probably just now joining because I mentioned that in the beginning, that the book you're talking about. So yes, you are right. All right, so let's look here and keep on here. And yeah, so that's just important. So you didn't fail if you didn't immediately see someone come to the Lord. Honestly, you fail if you sit around and do nothing, though. And we all fail when we get in it. We make mistakes and we lose our cool, or we chicken out. That happens with every okay? But the question is, what's your pattern? What's your desire? What do you? And this has got to be part of our life, okay? And so, Lieutenant Colombo asks these questions, and we want to do the same thing. Coco says the Colombo tactics key is to go on the offensive in an inoffensive way by using carefully selected questions to productively advance the conversation. Simply put, do never first make a statement. Never make a statement when a question will do the job. You remember when they say never send a boy to do a man's job? You know that, right? Never send a boy to do a man's job. Never make a statement when a question will do. Now look, this, just because you have tactics doesn't mean you don't listen to Holy Spirit. And so some of you might be like, well, what about allowing the Holy Spirit? Look, sometimes I do believe God will nudge you and prompt you to say certain things at certain times in certain ways. And they may not always be questions. But God can also work through our questions. The Apostle Paul asked questions. Jesus asked questions. We should figure out how to wisely ask questions. We're too used to expounding and giving lectures and stuff like that. We got to get out of that habit. We gotta be wise. We gotta be wise as we go on, okay? Be wise. Okay, so a sincere question. So this isn't a mere trick. This is trying to help us learn how to navigate properly questions in a godly, wise way. And so this isn't about a trick, but it is about trying to go somewhere. Now, here's what happens. When you understand the content better of apologetic material, you'll be wiser in the questions you ask because you understand better the target. So what you'll notice is, just like with any skill, as you practice learning how to utilize questions, okay, picture them as arrows, and you have a target. The target is to get to the gospel. That's the bullseye. That's the target. And picture each question as an arrow to move along the conversation to that place ultimately, right? What's up, Deacon? I see you. How you doing? Dr. Funny, I know it's a weird time to go live, but I am running out of time this week, and so I had to look at one little slot I had. I could come on here. I mean, I'm not saying you wanted this, but I could come on here and break down my whole schedule to you guys. And we're all busy, so I'm not saying, oh, I'm busy. Everybody's busy, right? You know, I get that. It's 21st century, okay? But I could, break down my schedule and be like, here's why I got to go live at this time. But that'd bore you. So instead, sometimes I just got to go live when I can. Sometimes it's super late. I know this, but it's like I have a choice. Go live at a weird time or don't go live at all sometimes, you know? Oh, but Dr. Funny, hey, since you're here, let's look at the make and model of these headphones. Hold up. Real quick, man. Sony MDR XB550. That's what it looks like it's saying. Yeah. Sony M is in Michael, D is in David, R is in Romeo, dash X is in Xavier, B is in boy, 550. Sony MDR XB550. Anyways, because you were asking about that, and I hadn't got back with you yet. But shout out to you, Sakari Seattle, and shout out to you, Haka. So what happens is, as you gain more knowledge and wisdom in apologetics and in the gospel, because really that's the first and foremost thing. Before you understand what Mormons believe and what Jehovah's Witnesses believe and all these ins and outs, you need to first understand the gospel. That's key. Witnessing without knowing the gospel doesn't make any sense. Now, it doesn't mean you're an expert in all the ins and outs, right? But you got to understand the basics of the gospel, okay? So gospel first, and then you learn as you go. Because you may say, well, no, I need to it is important to learn, right? There's groups I study in particular for that purpose. But let me show you something. Let's say a Jehovah's Witness knocks on your door on Saturday, which they don't do as much anymore. You got to go to a bus stop now, right? But hey, we'd like to give you a free magazine. Have you heard about the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society? Whatever they say, right? You could go off and be like, oh, you could start going off. My son was a Jehovah's Witness, and he wouldn't celebrate his birthdays, and whatever you want to say, right? Don't do that. Ask a question. There's so many questions you can ask. If they hand you a magazine, I bet you there's something right on the cover that you could ask a question about. Even if they say the Watchtower, you could say, why is it called the Watchtower? Because there's a specific reason why it's called the Watchtower. And so let's say you don't know anything about Jehovah's Witnesses theology, and all they do is tell you we're part of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. Ask about the Watchtower, because there's a specific reason it's theologically called that. And you'll learn next time you meet a Jehovah's Witness, you'll know more. Do you see what I'm saying? And so what I'm trying to show you is that it's good to learn and know, but a good thing to do is start to ask questions, okay? And there's different kinds of questions, and there's great advantages to asking questions. Because you know what? You need to get an education. They're going to teach you as they go. And you may say, well, that doesn't sound right, or the last Roman Catholic I tried to witness to didn't believe that. Guess what? It's important to see what they believe, meaning this Catholic you talk to may not believe the same thing as the last Catholic, but that's the point. You're understanding Roman Catholicism from his perspective. Yeah, do you guys hear Mr. Scruffles in the background? That's because I barked. He started tripping out. That's kind of funny. Thank you, Justice. Thank you. Thank you. Jeez, man. That's funny, right? That's pretty hilarious, actually, to me. All right, so, jeez, dog. All right, so you get an education because you want to understand what they mean from their perspective, from their viewpoint. That way you're not wasting time, right? And also, questions allow you to make progress in the conversation without being overly pushy. You know what I'm saying? That's why you're going with that. All right, so, and to an extent, a carefully placed question puts you in the driver's seat. Now, you got to know the destination you're trying to get to if you want to be in the driver's seat. And that's what I mean. As you go on, you become better and more adept at this, and you'll see you learn more. But let me just show you. Let me reiterate this point. Jesus himself asked questions. Let me give you examples. Let me give you an example. Remember in Luke 20:24, what did Jesus say? Show me a denarius. It's when they asked if they should pay tithes. Remember that? And what does he say? Whose likeness and inscription does it have? Now, Jesus already knew whose likeness and inscription was on there, didn't he? He's sitting there looking at it. So Jesus already knows the answer to this question. There's a reason why he's doing that in Luke 20:24. What about Luke 24? They ask him, where's your authority come from? He says, was the baptism of John from heaven or from men? Remember that? What about in Mark 2, when they don't think he has power to forgive sins? What happens with that in Mark 2:9? What happens with that? Jesus says, okay, which is easier to say to the paralytic? Your sins are forgiven, or to say, arise and take up your pallet and walk? Which one's easier? He's asking them a question to get them to think about what's going on. Do you guys see that? Well-placed question. You get to gather information, you get to lead the conversation, and you really get to reverse the burden of proof. Reverse the burden of proof. This is good. This is good. This is what you want to do. All right. Now, I'm looking through here, and I want to see what other kinds of things I want to bring to you guys' attention real quick here. Yeah, I think we're going to go to this. So that's a specific kind of question that you need to ask, which is some variation of what do you mean by that. So somebody says, I don't believe there's any God. Before you go off, you know what a great question to ask is, what do you mean when you say God? What do you mean? Do you see what do you mean? What do you mean when you say there's no God? How would you define God? What about this? What about this? The second kind of question besides what do you mean by that? Which is a variation. You can ask, what do you mean by that, without literally saying, what do you mean by that? The other great thing to do is similar to what Built for Speed said, I think, which is this. How did you come to that conclusion? So somebody says the Bible is just a bunch of myths and fairy tales. The Bible is just a bunch of myths and fairy tales. First, I would say, when you say fairy tale or myth, what do you mean by that? And they give you an answer. Well, they're fraudulent stories ripped off from other ancient cultures. We can't trust it. Something like that. I would zoom in on something where they explain what they mean by a myth or a fairy tale. Something borrowed from another culture that's clearly false. Maybe they're saying that. You say, okay, how do you know? How do you know that these stories are ripped off from other cultures? So instead of saying, oh, you must be referring to the Epic of Gilgamesh. Well, actually, before you launch into that, find out what they are even saying. And then once you understand what they're saying, then you ask them why they believe it. So the first two questions really are this. What do you believe and why do you believe it? Do you see it? It's that simple. What do you believe and why do you believe it? That's really what you're asking them by what do you mean by that, because you're asking them to elaborate. And when you say, how did you come to that conclusion, you're saying, why do you believe that? Hey, what's up, Jasmine? Good to see you, sis. So just when someone makes a claim, we a lot of times automatically feel like the pressure is on us to refute it. The Bible's filled with contradictions. What do you mean by contradiction? You see what I'm saying? Or, well, here's an example of a contradiction. These two things can't be true. Why couldn't these two things be true? Like, there's 1,000 ways to approach it. But ask a question. Don't just make statements. And it's very important to see why people believe what they believe. So let's say somebody say, that's an example here where it would be helpful. I think that the evidence is that God did not create this universe. So instead of making a statement right away, what you want to do is ask them why they think that. They just said something. Now, all of a sudden, a Christian sometimes feels like, okay, well, now we've got to explain why God did create the universe. Hold up. You don't have to do that. Just slow down. You don't have to do that just yet. Instead of saying, well, God did create the evidence. Here's the evidence. Or God did create the universe. Here's evidence. Say, what's your best evidence, or what's a reason you think the universe was not created? Remember, they're telling you there's evidence that the universe was not created. What is the evidence? Well, Dr. Lawrence Taylor, that's old defensive player from the New York Giants, probably one of the best of all time, actually. I meant Dr. Lawrence Krauss. So Dr. Lawrence Krauss says da 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 da, and they go into their explanation or something like that. Okay, and so you understand. Oh, so they're looking at this the way Krauss would. So that's helpful. So a lot of times, though, it's crazy if people don't really have good reasons for why they believe what they even believe. So just let them work it out. Let them work it out. Hey, Dr. Funny, thank you very much for the super chat and for all the support and love and help. And I know it's a busy time for you in the middle of the day doing what you do, but shout out to you, seriously. And now I owe, I think I owe like 3 freestyles from this show alone. But we'll take care of Scruffles. In fact, I'm going to show you some stuff I got for him coming up here. How about that? Hey, what's up? Apology accepted is in the crib. Oh, comment, Mike. I didn't even know you was up in here. Oh, hey. How you doing, man? We miss you, man. But at least I get to text you every now and then. Okay, so one thing I think that's important that Columbo tactic by Kokel's words brings out is that we should realize that an alternate explanation is not necessarily a refutation. An alternate explanation is not necessarily a refutation. I think that's important to recognize. Let me actually read these paragraphs here. The question, how did you come to that conclusion, accomplishes something vitally important. It forces persons you are in conversation with to give an account for their own beliefs. Christians should not be the only ones who have to defend their views. Reject the impulse to counter every assertion someone manufactures. Reject the impulse to... Oh, I already read that. Don't try to refute every tale spun out of thin air. Instead, steer the burden of proof back on the other person's shoulders. Make them give you reasons, not just a point of view. It's not your job to defeat their claim. It's their job to defend it. Now, remember, sometimes people just share their point of view, but that's actually not reasons for why they believe their point of view. If somebody says, well, the Bible's a ripoff, I can't trust it. Well, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? Well, Luke ripped off Homer. This is, by the way, something that atheists do say, atheist New Testament scholars. Luke ripped off Homer. Really? Instead of explaining why Luke didn't rip off Homer or something like that, just say, you believe that Luke ripped off Homer. Notice they just share their viewpoint. They didn't give a reason. They're saying that's a reason why they don't believe the Bible, but now they haven't given a reason for that. What is the reason you think that Luke ripped off Homer? That's a simple enough question, right? They're saying Luke ripped off Homer. Now, here's where a lot of times the wheels fall off for the person you're interacting with if they're not very well versed in what they say they believe. A lot of times they'll say, oh, you haven't really looked into this. You don't know. You need to do the research. They put it back on you as if you are supposed to defend their claim. That's a cheap trick. When somebody tries to put it back on you with the do your research, oh, do your research. You'll find out it's true. Well, hey, I'll do my research, but since you already believe it, I assume you've done the research. Could you tell me why you think Luke ripped off Homer? So you're restating it because it's not your job to work to prove their claim. But a lot of people on the internet, they tell Christians all the time, do your research after they've made a claim. It's the most bizarre thing ever. They think it's your job to prove their point. And we got to gently correct them on that, right? We got to gently correct them on that. It's not our job to prove their point, is it? No, of course not. So tell me the reasons why you're saying you think Luke ripped off Homer. Well, read this book. So if I read this book, it tells the reasons. Now, that's not really, they're saying their evidence is in the book. They're not really giving you any reasons you can interact with. And let's say they really do come back with something hard. Well, you have this water and boat motif, and it's there in both places. Now, what do you think about that? You probably never heard this before. You don't know what you think about it. You know what you say? Let me think about it. Seriously. Again, this is why we don't have to be afraid to be stumped, because no one told us we had to know all the answers. Just tell people the truth. Now, if you're not going to think about it, don't be lying. But they say, let me think about it. Guess what? You should think about it. I'm saying if you say you're going to think about it. I think thinking about it means when the pressure is off, you do some research into the claim. Now, it helps if they gave you something to work with, because then you know what they're believing. Let's say they point to a book. You might get that book. I know someone the other day who did that. Someone was talking about Christianity as a white man's religion, and Christianity was a European thing, not an African thing. So they got some books on African Christianity. Boom. And now they're seeing that you could put that claim to rest real fast. And now they're going to have more strength next time they go back in that conversation. Hopefully you're not only loaded with knowledge and wisdom, but also information, and then they understand how to do it with questions. Do you guys see what I'm saying? I hope so. I hope so. So it's not our job to defend people's viewpoints. It's our job to defend our viewpoint. Now, when someone does give you an alternate explanation, it's important to ask, is this possible? So some things didn't actually happen, but they're at least possible. Meaning if somebody says, aliens wrote the Bible. People say stuff like that, by the way. So somebody say aliens wrote the Bible. Is that possible? Well, if aliens exist, and then you'd have to probably have the person define that. If aliens exist, I guess hypothetically then, aliens could have written the Bible. I guess. Now, I don't think so. Presuppositionally, I wouldn't go there. But I'm saying, even if they were, or they'd have to be around. But that doesn't mean it happened. And so that's the second question. Is it plausible? Is it plausible? Is it likely? Or someone says Jesus was actually an alien. That explains his ministry. Is it possible? Well, I guess if aliens existed, I guess hypothetically it's possible on strictly a logical basis, I guess. But I really don't think so, actually. Is it plausible? Now, that's a lot less likely. Is it plausible? Third, is it probable? Now, that's where you really run into trouble. Is this something likely that even happened in the first place? Now, Coco talks about something called the professor's ploy that sometimes can happen when people get into this. And sometimes what they'll do is they want to totally sort of set a trap for you. They want to lay out some bait, and what they're trying to get you to do is to do their job. So somebody takes a pot shot at the Bible, and you just say, what do you mean that you think the Bible is a lie? Oh, so you don't think the Bible's a lie? Well, why don't you defend the Bible right now? That's a ploy. They don't want to defend their own belief. They're trying to get you to defend a belief they're putting on you. Dealing with sometimes, these alternative urban spiritualities. They'll be like, oh man, there's so many. I don't want to go too far afield. Let me just stick with this. But when that happens, don't take the bait. They're trying to shift the burden of proof and try to sidestep their responsibility. But you don't need to take the bait. It's like, well, especially if they don't know what you believe yet. Well, I'm happy to talk about that, but first I want to understand what you mean when you say the Bible's a lie. You know what I'm saying? All right, and that relates to something else that Coco's got here called getting out of the hot seat. I want to say real quick here. This is page 68. There's a further advantage of Columbo. I call it getting out of the hot seat. Sometimes we're afraid we do not have enough information or not quick enough on our feet to keep up with a fast talker in an intense discussion. The fear of getting in and over our heads is enough to keep us from saying anything at all. We especially dread the possibility of being embarrassed by some aggressive critic blasting us with arguments, opinions, or information we are not equipped to handle. In this circumstance, the tactical approach really shines. Columbo questions help you easily manage the conversation even when you sense you are overmatched. First, don't feel under pressure to immediately answer every question asked or every point made. That's important. Stay on target. Stay on target. We don't have to feel the pressure to answer every question, especially when somebody asks us 30 questions and it says, explain it. Questions are way easier and quicker to ask, right, than to give an answer for something. To give an answer takes more time, doesn't it? Yes, it does. Especially when someone else is coming on strong. Instead, practice a little conversational aikido. Let them keep coming at you, but use their aggressive energy to your advantage. The minute you feel overmatched, buy yourself some time by shifting from persuasion mode to fact-finding mode. Don't try to argue your own case yet. Instead, ask probing clarification questions and ask for reasons. Say something like, sounds like you might know a lot more about this than I do, and you have some interesting ideas, but this is new information to me. I wonder if you could do me this favor. I want to understand your viewpoints, but if you could just slow down so I can get them right. Will you take a moment to carefully explain your view and also your reasons for it so I can understand it better? So do you see, it shows you're taking the person's viewpoint seriously, but instead of like having to answer all these rapid fire questions, you're just getting them to explain their view further. Now, I'm gonna stop real quick here. That leads us up to chapter 5 there in this book. Chapter 5 of Tactics. Check this out. The live chat, you guys are funny. Sorry, I'm getting distracted here. Oh man, what was I just gonna say? Hold on, now I gotta go back. I just got distracted by the live chat and forgot what I was gonna say. Darn it. Oh man. Oh, come on. It literally was just in my head. And it literally just disappeared. Dang it. Oh, come on, man. Yep, I think it's gone out of my head. What was I going to say? I just had it. Well, now I forgot. Yeah, Old Hickory, we just been skimming through the tactics book, and we kind of skimmed through the first 4 chapters. And you know what? I think this is the right time to make the announcement, actually. Abe Burr brings the word. Thank you. Buy an unclean food box deal on me. Yeah, they got those $5, what is it, $5 or $6 things at Jack in the Box, huh? Blessings to you and yours and all in chat. Oh, Taco Bell does too. Shout out to you, Bird Brings the Word. It's always good to see you. What is your profile picture? Is that like Link? I don't actually know what that is. Is that Link? What is that? Here's the time to make the announcement. For next book club we do, we're going to do tactics. Now, I've already went through some of it up to chapter 5. And so what we're going to do is the rest of the book. Now, I know that's a lot, but this is the kind of book that's not necessarily in-depth hard reading, and I think we can make it through the rest of the book, which is chapter 5 through 14. If you look, it's pretty easy reading. And so for our next book club we do for Street Apologists, we're going to do chapters 5 through 14. And so that's pages like 73 to 200. I'll give you guys like 2 or 3 weeks. Because if you guys know, we just started something earlier this year called the Street Apologist Live Book Club. It's where once a month we get into a different book I bring out. And then we look at aspects to it. Usually I just do one chapter. And usually I say, hey, I want it to be a book that's available to all for free or something like that. But here's what I'm going to say for this. If you don't have tactics, you need to have it, first of all, anyway. Now, some of you may want to wait until the end of November when the second edition comes out, because we'll be doing this before November when the second edition comes out. But there's nothing wrong with getting a copy, giving the first edition to somebody, getting that second copy, the second edition when it comes out. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with that. Not only that, but if you can't buy the book, I don't encourage people to do pirate, whatever, PDFs and all that. I'm not talking about that. But he's talked about this so much on online lectures and in interviews that you'd be okay to just go ahead and listen to stuff online and get a sense of it. It won't be exactly with us, but you'll get an idea. So if you can't get the book, just in the next 3 weeks, just go through all the lectures by Greg Kokel on this, and you'll be okay. And then we'll come back and talk about it. Hey, thank you, Roxby, for the super chat. So the next book we're going to do is Tactics, starting in chapter 5, and we'll just see how far we can go through and get through it to discuss the rest of this. This will probably be about 3 weeks from now, okay? But that'll be what we're going to do. And remember, I do have an interview with him on the channel as well. I encourage you to listen to. And anyways, so there's what's up with that. All right. Let's see what time it is here. Yeah, we gotta wind. We gotta leave a little bit here. Dr. Funny, OCD is strong in this chat. I guess it is, right? Okay. I want to make sure everybody knows that tomorrow, according to David Wood, the new Boom Boom Room is dropping. It's Muhammad meets the Joker. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this because we're done with the main part of the show. I just want to share a little bit of news stuff with you guys real quick. And I made the announcement about the book club, so now you guys know what's up. I've told you guys a little bit about this, but the date is supposed to happen tomorrow. So that's Thursday. Today's Wednesday in the United States if you're checking it out there. The script was pretty epic, I think. Parts of it are troubling because the Joker character in general is troubling. And I think you'll see that, but it's kind of like, what do you expect, right? It's the Joker, so it's going to be a little disturbed. David, of course, was the Joker. We got a professional makeup artist. She killed it. She absolutely killed it. She's the same one who did his makeup when he was the devil, a.k.a. Gabriel, a.k.a. Satan, a.k.a. the angel who gave Muhammad his revelations, right? In the cave. But the Boom Boom Room drops not on my channel, but on David Wood's channel, Act 17 Apologetics. Most of you are subbed to both of us. please at least sub to me. I only got 15,000. He's got like 400,000, right? He don't need none. But anyways, you definitely want to check this out when it drops tomorrow. And I hope he's done editing. I hope it does, because we're trying to time it in time with the Joker movie coming out. Nobody says you need to see it. We're not doing a promotional thing. We're just trying to be wise with it. And the Joker, as a fictional character, he's been around since 1940, is a perfect person to interact with Muhammad, who is not a fictional character, who's a real person who influences millions. And what we try to do each time is to teach you a little bit about why Muhammad is a false prophet. And so when he interacts with the Joker, who is a fictional character, truth comes out about who Muhammad is, what he taught, right? And I think that you guys will appreciate it, even if you're not big comic book fans, even if you're not DC nerds, even if you're not into the superhero movies or something like that, whatever it is, it's all good. Man, you guys are talking about something totally different. Like a ride. Are you serious, man? Whatever. I'm not even going to entertain that, because it seems like somebody understands. Anybody can understand what's going on. Young Diction, you get it. So that's cool. What's up? Shout out to you, Young Diction. Lordy. Well, that's what happens when you ain't got nothing else, right? Thank you, Old Hickory 12. You're my man right now. All right. Seriously. When you ain't got nothing else, that's what you bring, I guess. So I'm excited about this with the Joker one, and hopefully the search patterns will make it where people see this video. Now, YouTube's algorithm is not always kind to Christian apologetic things. We know that, but we try to be smart and wise while the mic is still on, in a manner of speaking. And so we'll see what we can do with that. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see the reaction. I really hope he's done editing it tomorrow. I'm not going to give you spoilers, but I will give you some little hints about it. He patterned the voice along the lines of the Mark Hamill voice. Mark Hamill is sort of a fan favorite who did video game and cartoon Jokers. I don't think he ever did them in live action, but he's really a fan favorite. And of course, Mark Hamill's the same guy who was Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. But he's got a great way that he really approached the Joker character. So that's along the lines. The makeup, if you've seen on my Instagram page, is a mixture of different Jokers. A little bit of Heath Ledger in there. It's not the perfect clown makeup, but also a little bit of influence from the classic Joker makeup. So it's kind of in between, but I like the way it turned out. It's a unique thing. The costume itself, I think, turned out really well. David looked good in it. I think you guys are gonna trip when you see that. And the thing is just over the top insane. So it's funny, it's irreverent, but the point is to show the false prophet Muhammad for who he is, okay? And so I know some of you guys don't even really get much into the Hebrewism stuff I discuss. I know a lot of you here are really here because of Islam, and that's more what you're interested in. I understand that, and I just appreciate you guys that you kind of go along for the ride when I cover these other issues. But, Islam is always going to be relevant. Islam is always going to be important to discuss globally. Islam is something that the Christian churches have had to face for hundreds of years, really. And it's like in the West, people are just now waking up. And one thing that's helpful is for truth to get out there. So information directly from Islamic sources be put out there, because what happens is lies expose themselves. And when the true information about Muhammad's known, we don't have to lie, we don't have to trick, we don't have to play games. When the basic actual information is known about who Muhammad is, what he taught, all that stuff, it becomes clear and evident, I think, to anyone who's not under really an extreme delusion that this man clearly is a false prophet. And that matters because of the force of the influence that this religion, Islam, has in the world. So it's polemical. But that's one part of apologetics, is the attacking aspect. Now, that's not all it is. At the end of the day, we got to give a defense for the gospel and live it out, right? But it's important. Now, that's what I was going to say, and that's really what I'm going to close the show with, besides maybe a freestyle, right? Which is this. Christianity is true. Just like my man Cameron over there at Capturing Christianity always likes to put BTW, by the way, Christianity is true. And that's true. So I know you guys don't have all the answers. None of us do. We're fallible. We're not omnipotent. None of us are, right? But I think we want to ask the Lord for an increase in our confidence and faith and trust in the unshakable rock who is Christ and the word that he has given us, and believe that Christianity, as properly taught from the Bible, is true. Why do I say that? Because that means the story of reality, another Coco book, is to be found in the pages of Scripture, nowhere else. What's up, Andrew Graham? Now, here's the deal. All competing worldviews, what they do is they diverge from reality at some point. And what I mean by that is, if they don't follow the biblical narrative, if they don't put Christ as the center, if they don't do those things, they end up running into reality. So when it comes to the atheists, for example, they end up believing fairy tales for adults in essence. And whenever they encounter something that's clearly part of reality, they just call it an illusion. So morality ultimately is an illusion, they say. Your consciousness, they say ultimately it's essentially an illusion. Design, the evidence of design in the universe, it's actually an illusion. Because these things are clearly there, so atheists describe these components or aspects of reality as illusions. The point is, because they contradict what God says about reality, they bump into the wall of reality at some point. We could go down worldview after worldview. It may have a lot of truth in it. Islam has some truth in it. There's only one God. He communicates through prophets. You see, you could go down the list, right? There's truth. A lot of worldviews deny that. But then it says someone who was a false prophet was a true prophet. In fact, the final messenger. Then it bumps into reality. And the point is, any non-Christian worldview will hang itself if you give it enough rope. I don't mean people literally or anything like that. But Greg Bonson would used to talk about when he was alive, let the unbeliever have enough rope to hang himself. How does that happen? You've got to let them speak. You've got to let them talk. And what happens is they will contradict themselves and they will contradict reality. Now, we all can make mistakes. We believe something was false, it's true. You know, some of you guys maybe used to believe in flat earth and then you realize it contradicts reality. Now, I know people get mad about that. Or whatever the case is. To be honest, I think if you hold to evolution, you run into problems when it comes to God's reality. Whatever is the false belief that we hold on to bumps into it. And that could happen with any of us, but the basic components are there in Scripture, and we center the things we believe around what we know to be true. And I would just want to encourage you guys, don't be afraid of any challenge you're going to meet. Don't be afraid of what the unbeliever is going to say. Hold on to Christ like a pit bull. Realize, have a mentality that's just ultimately like rock solid. Like, I don't know all the answers, but I trust God and I can find the answers. So someone may be really impressive with their degrees on the wall and everything else, but you hold on to Christ regardless of what they say. You're not trusting in yourself. If you're like, well, I don't have all the answers, that means you're kind of trusting in yourself, aren't you? Lean not into your own understanding. Lean not into your own understanding. And all your ways acknowledge him, he will direct your paths. Trust in him. He's the rock, not you, not me. We change. We're emotional. We make errors in judgment. We forget things. The Lord, though, doesn't. So you may hear something initially that sounds good. Proverbs talks about when someone first presents a case, it sounds good until you hear the other side. You want to hear the other side in relationship to these contradictory worldviews. But I just want to pray that all of us grow in faith and knowledge and trust like a little child. Christ says these are the kinds who will enter into the kingdom. I don't think it just means children. I think it means those who have a childlike, innocent faith and trust to God as he is Abba Father. And we can trust him. He's the dad who won't die or let us down. That's who the Abba is, right? So when you hold on to that steadfastly, you don't have to be afraid to engage in conversation with any unbeliever, no matter how smart or strong they are. But you also don't have to front like you know everything. We don't know everything. Learn how to ask questions and just trust in God ultimately. This isn't about us and how smart or knowledge. Now, this is not an excuse to be intellectually lazy. That's why I hope you guys are interested in apologetics. But I want to encourage you. The reason why tactics is important in the idea of asking questions, because we don't need to be afraid of anything the unbeliever is going to say to us. We listen, we learn, we take it in, we process it, we run it through Scripture, we run it through truth, right? And guess what? If we're faithful and diligent in that, we'll always come out stronger on the other side. And we have full confidence and assurance that any opposing worldview or worldviews that oppose Christian truth at certain points, they ultimately will fail and fall, because truth is not on their side. Because you can say all day long there's no God, but the fact is we all live in God's created universe. And that's an insight that Francis Schaeffer gave. Really, of course, it's really Pauline out of Romans 1 and 2, but really it's even further back than that, to the psalmist, and really to the scriptural record itself and the author who's behind it. So I want to bring that out and just encourage you guys to think that way, right? Now, with all that being said, I hope today was an encouraging show. I know it's a little bit chill. Remember, our book club for this month, October, is going to be Tactics, and we're going to start on page 5 and just see how far along we can get with the rest of the book. Probably 3 weeks' time, I'll let you guys know. With that, let's try to kick off this freestyle and look for some videos coming out. I might try to drop something before I leave tomorrow, before I go to Philly, to hear the debate, because I want to talk about this new movie, The Day Shall Come, because guess what? I saw it now. It wasn't playing in Phoenix, but one of the listeners actually told me, hey, guess what? It's on Amazon Prime. So The Day Shall Come is on Amazon Prime. You can't buy it, but you can rent it. I thought that was pretty strange that there would be a movie that's in theaters currently that you could rent right now on Amazon Prime. Strange, right? But nonetheless, the fact is, it is on Amazon Prime, so you can watch The Day Shall Come. Now, I don't know what you guys are going to say about my analysis, but I'm going to talk a little bit about it, because it's a Hollywood treatment that includes Hebrew Israelitish stuff, and so I want to do a live stream on that issue. Let me address one thing briefly. This is not the topic of the show today. Sakari Seattle, with all due respect, you're talking about something that's from a previous show, and I get that. So let me briefly interact with it. Check this out. One is the live stream last night. Was it last night or the night before? Whenever I did it 2 days ago, was from Mark 7. And I covered the first 23 or 24 verses of Mark 7. So it was extensive and contextual. I zoomed in on verse 19 because I know how relevant it is to many discussions between Christians and those who say they keep the law, like I imagine you would claim. Now here's what's interesting. Sakar Seattle, your question is not based on the text we were discussing at all. You're playing Hebrew hopscotch. You're running to Acts to discuss it. Now, I'm glad to discuss Acts because I think it's not on your side at all. I think it's obvious and evident that Acts chapter 10 is on the believer's side and not on the legalist side. And I mean that, again, with all due respect. That's not a knock against you. That is a knock against your beliefs, though. So you want to go to Acts 10. Let me ask you this. Why aren't you asking me a question from Mark 7? Why aren't you dealing with the text I actually discussed in depth? Because Mark 7:19 is what I discussed in depth, wasn't it? Yes, it was. So why aren't you discussing Mark 7:19? Let me ask you a question. When in the Greek text, it says, declared all foods clean. When it says that, you tell me what that means. Before you jump over to Acts 10, you got to tell me what Mark 7:19 actually means. Because it says declared all foods clean. What does declared all foods clean mean? You got to tell us what it means. Every explanation I've heard is horrible. It doesn't actually deal with the text. I've never seen an explanation yet that legitimately deals with Mark 7:19 that doesn't just take it at face value. We're just dealing with the Bible as it says. We're just dealing with the text as it says. Jesus declared all foods clean. Now, whether you think those are the words of Jesus or the parenthetical comment of Mark, of which I think it's most likely that that's what it was, but he's a gospeler who's divinely inspired. When I see Mark explaining the application of what Jesus is saying, I believe it. I just believe it. Why can't you just believe it? That's what I don't understand. And if you look at church history, and again, maybe you have, so I'm not saying this to try to diss you, but if you look at church history, you'll see that all early attestation, as well as internal clues as far as literary inclusios, indicate that Mark is his source. Mark's source is Peter. So ultimately, Markan material is ultimately Petran material. And I think there's a lot of evidence to that fact. Now, you have this collaborative effort with John Mark and Peter, and you have behind the gospel that Peter is the source of, Mark saying this. My point is, I think the Mark 7:19 parenthetical comment is evidence that Peter did understand this properly later on. But nonetheless, you're not really dealing with Mark 17. Thank you, Love and Light, for the super chat. Thank you. That's all I want to say. I want to ask why you're not dealing with Mark 7:19, since that's what we dealt with. But let's continue on now. This is the last part of the show. It is time to end with a freestyle. We did one in the beginning. Let's do the other one, and let's make it this one. Let me switch the mic here. Hold up. Switch the mic here. Hold up. Switch the mic here. Hold up. How's this sound? Yeah. Give me a little volume there. Let me give it a little volume there. Get a little volume there. All right. I think we're good. Now, the Hebrew Israelites hate when I freestyle. But we love doing it, so we're going to do it. All right, let's start. Here we go. All right. Here we go. Close the show with a freestyle, ladies and gentlemen. 3. Please don't disrespect the beat. I don't know what that means. Dr. Funny, I don't know. Which one's better? Those ones you're saying sound dope. I'll go with the upgraded ones, man. Upgraded. Let's show David Wood who's got a better audience. Nah, I'm just kidding, bro. But let's do the upgraded one. If we can. All right, let's do this. 3, 2, 1. It's a dope beat right here. Real dope. If the volume level is right, hopefully it's right. All right. Shout out to the homies like Rocks. Dr. Funny, I already gave you my P.O. box. Tech Patreon. You'll see I sent a message around the afternoon. I meant the afternoon. Arriving in the P.O. box, coming soon. I'll see it, I'm looking forward. Here I go, I spit these 4 words and these bars like an alcoholic. Get it, check it out, nothing in my wallet. What we call it really don't matter, but it's the word of God. It provides the data. I'm not no Dapper Dan. I got my own shirt, Vocab, my man. VocabMalone.com ain't really updated. Peep it out now, it's outdated. Frustrated, the Hebrew Israelite. The beat is hype, now you know the type. Jonathan Soko, he made it right and exact. Now it takes flight like it had wings. I sing these things. Here we go again. We're offering praise and sacrifice to Yahweh. Hey, peep it out, check the words I say on a Wednesday. Hey, not a holiday. I'm not united with nature, but it's hip-hop array. Well, actually, I was back in the day, NBN, but now I'm saved by grace. OPP and all that junk was me, but that's kinda nasty. I got the MC, epistemology from Marshall Villager. Peep it out now, I will not pillage the beat like a Viking. Now I'm writing Jesus the Christ. He's inviting those who see the gospel get exciting. Yes, indeed. And now he's like lightning, like the kid's book by Sproul. Hey, yo, who's read it? Raise your hand so I know. Let's take roll. 1, 2, 3, 4. I need some art from the G.I. Joe. universe, I spit a verse, put a whack MC in a hearse, peep it out, back in the day, did the dirt at work, every single morning, I see the beat, now I'm warning, I'm flowing like a Camaro, I got a question, I aim it like an arrow, to your marrow, like the word of God, cuts and splits, like a hot rod, we going real fast, we rockin' the beat, hey yo, this is the end, so peace!